Hey guys, so you started playing Path of Exile 2, or you wanna start playing Path of Exile 2, I will teach you everything you need to know to make your experience much more smoother, much more fun, stress-free, and these are things that the game doesn't really show you, but they are essential to your journey. So let's get into it.
So, let's talk about stash tabs. When you buy the game, you're going to have 300 currency. With that, you can buy the currency stash tab, which is literally the most important thing you want to spend your money on. This will carry on to the full game, and whenever you find anything like crafting material or currency, it will transfer automatically in the currency stash tab once you put it from your inventory into the stash tab.
So this is your currency stash tab. When you find crafting materials or currency, you can control click them and they will go into their designated place. Okay, so the next thing you want to know is very important. Let's talk about vendors. Whenever you level up, you want to check vendors because the inventories will change every single time you level up. And you might find a lot of good things in here. So whenever you make a level, you go to the vendor, check their inventory, see if there are good items that you might need and might be an upgrade to your gear. Another important thing you want to keep in mind is don't hoard currency items or crafting materials like Orb of Transmutation and Orb of Augmentation in the early game. Because these, you will have plenty of these and these are extremely dirt cheap in the end game, so you really don't need to keep these. You want to craft every single item you find. So, how do you craft the items? Well, you have normal items which are white, you have magic items which are blue, you have rare items which are yellow, and uniques which are orange or brown. How do you craft in the early game? Well, you take a white item, a normal item, you put it in here. So, we're gonna use Orb of Transmutation, which upgrades a normal item to a magic item with 1 modifier. Okay, we add this here. We got 2 intelligence, useless. So, now the item is magic, it's blue. So now we're gonna use Orb of Augmentation, augments a magic item with a new random modifier. We add this here and we have a new modifier on it. So these are some basic things you need to know about the crafting. For example, I have the Expert Dual String Bow here. The Dual String Bow itself has an implicit that always comes with the bow, no matter what rarity it has. In this case, the implicit is bow attacks, fire an additional arrow. So now we're gonna use Orb of Transmutation, then Orb of Augmentation, then if you have a Regal Orb, but it's not really recommended in the early game, you might want to keep these, is to make the magic rare with 1 more modifier. Upgrades a magic item to rare item, adding 1 modifier. Okay, so we made it rare with 1 modifier. How do you add more modifiers to these items? Well, with Exalted Orbs. You take Exalted Orbs and you add more modifiers to it until you reach up to a total 6 modifiers. So, another important thing you need to know here. So we have this bow that we just crafted. Now if we hold Alt on it, we're gonna see the details. See the implicit, we have 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes. This is the most you can get. So you can get the maximum of 3 prefixes and the maximum of 3 suffixes. Not more than that. So you can't, for example, get 4 prefixes and 2 suffixes. You can get that. It's 3 and 3. And on the right side, you can see you have T8, T1, T1. Okay, what are these? These are the tiers of the value of your rolls on an item. So for example, T8 is better than T1. Okay, so T1 is the worst, T12 is the best. In case you wonder, okay, is this a good roll? Maybe it's not a good roll, and you're not really sure. You hold Alt and you see these details, you say like, oh, I think it's a good roll, and then you hold Alt, you see T1, and you're like, oh, okay, never mind, it's useless. So, you might wonder what stats you need and what stats you don't need. So, I will show you exactly the most important stats that you need into the game. You need resistances. Fire resistance, cold resistance, lightning, and chaos. You want to get these to 75%. That's the cap. You don't want to go higher, you don't want to go lower than that. Chaos is the hardest one to find, but you need eventually to end up to 75%. And these are stats that you don't usually need. Maybe there are some builds that focus around these specific stats, but unless it's the case, they are usually useless. So what you need is maximum life, strength, dexterity, resistances, things like this. But the ones that I show you right now are pretty much useless. Avoid these stats. If you roll an item or you craft an item and you have 1 or 2 or 3 stats like this, the item is useless. You can just sell it or vendor it or disenchant it. So now I'm going to tell you how to add sockets and runes to your gear. For example, this item has 2 sockets. How do you get sockets? You need Artificer Shards. And from 10 Artificer Shards, you get an Artificer's Orb. How do you get Artificer Shards? You find items on the ground, like this, with 2 slots. Maybe it's useless, you don't need it. You go to the salvage bench, you salvage it, and you get 2 Artificer Shards, because I had 2 slots on it. Then, when you have 10, you will have an Artificer's Orb. So for example, we're going to take a random item, like this one, and we're gonna put 1 slot in it. And then, in here, you can add any type of rune you want. For example, here it gives 20 to maximum mana on armor. So you take this, and you put it in that slot. That's pretty much it. You will have plenty of this, so don't worry. Just use them, experiment, learn the game. Don't hoard anything. It's pointless. At the end game you'll have tons of these things and they are dirt cheap. Now I'm going to teach you how to sell items. So you have an item you want to sell. Maybe you think it's good.
Yeah, boy.
So you get to a stash tab. Like in this case mine is Merchant Item C. You right click it, you make it public. Then you put your item in here. You right click the item and you put any price you want here. And you can choose from any currency you want. Then you accept it and wait and see if someone responds. If someone responds, they will whisper you. So I'll talk about skills a little bit right now. For example, I have explosive grenades. So that's my main mercenary skill right now that I use. But you can use some other skills from other classes and synergize them together. How do you do that? For example, I shoot grenades right now, just simple grenades. But I have also Flame Wall, right? That's a sorcerer spell. But what happens if I put the sorcerer spell that I use down and shoot the grenades through it? They light up and they will do a lot more fire damage when they go through it. So I put this, I light them up when they go through the wall of flame, right? So you can synergize different skills with other classes. So for example, even at supports, I try to put some supports on my explosive grenades. These are the recommended tabs only, but you can put any single thing in there that you want that fits that slot specifically for that spell, right? From other classes, from anything. So you can synergize these with other classes. So for example, I have my explosive grenades and execute is not a recommended skill for explosive grenades, but I use it from another class because it gives me an advantage to this specific build that I'm using. So do that, experiment, try different things, try spells from other classes to synergize with your own and go crazy, right? So another thing, you will mostly get unidentified items. How do you identify these items and see what they are? You can have Scrolls of Wisdom and use these. You can buy them from the merchant. Or you can simply go to the hooded one, hold Ctrl and click on him. So see, down there in the left corner you can see here identify 2 items. You can click identify items, but I just showed you the shortcut on it. So mainly, why do you want to have Scroll of Wisdom that you buy with gold when he cannot just identify things? Why do you do this? For example, you go on the map and you have a lot of things in your inventory and you don't want to waste time coming back to town. You identify the item, you see it's a shit item, you just drop it on the floor and move on. That's like the only reason you want to have Scrolls of Wisdom in your inventory. So these things are tips and tricks later in the game a bit. So for example, you have Val Orbs that modify an item unpredictably and corrupts it. The idea is that you want to do this only if you are willing to lose that item, because when you corrupt it, you can't modify it any longer. So for example, I'll show you. I'll take this item, I'll corrupt it, nothing much happened, but now it's unmodifiable. It just added 1 extra socket. So it's unpredictable. What you can do if you have a valuable item and you want to gamble with it, but you're not so sure, you can go to the trade in-game, to Alva, to currency exchange, right? For example, I have Exalted and I want, and you can buy this Omen right here, Omen of Corruption. While this item is active in your inventory, your next Val Orb will be more unpredictable. Idea is it gives you more success chances, but when you buy this, you have to right click it while it's in the inventory, and after you use the Val Orb, it will consume, and then you have to buy another one. Right now it's kind of expensive, so you don't want to do that unless you have a ultra giga badass item, right, that you want to risk on. Another thing that I can show you is you can anoint your amulets. So what do I mean by that? You see, I have allocate steps like mist. Okay, so when I go to the passive skill tree, I can see these nodes, these bigger nodes. You can put any single one of these nodes on your amulet, even if you can't reach it. So for example, you can see I have step like mist. I have not connected this to anything. So how do you add this? You hold Alt and you see the oils that you need to anoint the amulet with. So when you have these oils, or you can buy them from the currency exchange, but when you have these oils, you can go to, let me see, where were they? Delirium. I named it Delulu, but you know what I mean. So for example, we have distillated greed or distilled greed. I can right click them. Okay, I put the amulet here, I put 3 of these here. You can try different combinations if you don't want to look at the whole passive tree and search for specific things you need. You can just randomize it here, see how it goes. Maybe you find something crazy that you actually need on your amulet. And you can put your amulet here and you can just anoint it with stuff. For example, I put 3 of these. It gives me life from death. Recover 3% of life on kill, right? So you can do that. Okay, so there's one more trick I can teach you. At level 70, you will start losing experience when you die. So what you can do is go to Alva, currency exchange, and buy one of these, or you can find one of these, Omen of Aeration. While this item is active in your inventory, will prevent 75% of experience loss when you die. But the trick is, this is for really like in the end game, because they are super expensive, and you're probably, but it's a thing that you might just want to know for the future, and that might help you not lose XP when you're trying to level. For like example, for like 90 to 91 and you don't want to die, and you want to make sure that if a mistake happens, you don't want to lose that much experience. You just buy one of these, you activate it in your inventory, and boom, when you die you just lose like 25% only. Okay guys, so those were the things you needed to know before you start the game, the essentials. So have fun out there. If you want to help me, comment, like, share, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks guys.